Hello, everyone. Welcome to our presentation about the Palais Royal. Today, we're going to be discussing the palace's significance to French history. We're going to talk about its architecture, and we're going to go over some of the historical and cultural events that took place within the palace. So very quickly, what is the Palais Royal? It is a historical landmark that is located in the heart of Paris in the Premier arrondissement. In English, its name would be the Royal Palace, and it was built in 1633 by Cardinal Richelieu. You can see on the little map right there the location of this palace. And now you might be wondering, okay, what makes this palace so special? Well, originally it was called the Palais Cardinal, and it was Richelieu's private residence. It was built as a display of wealth, power, and sophistication. And upon the cardinal's death, the palace became the property of King Louis XIII, who renamed it as Palais Royal. So, from its origins alone, we can already know that this is a very significant landmark for Paris, right? It's a palace that was built as a testament to the power and sophistication of the noble Frenchman, and it even served as the residence of the royal family. It's where King Louis XIV grew up. However, would argue that there is another reason why this is especially significant, and that is because I think that looking at the Palais Royal, um, we can understand a lot about the social dynamics of French society, about the architecture of Paris, about French history, and even learn a little bit about the contrast between fantasy and reality. I think that the Palais Royal can be used as a tool. Now, as an example, there's a TV show called Emily in Paris, and in this TV series, there are a lot of moments that take place at the Jardin du Palais Royal. And this is a perfect example of how Paris is romanticized and seen as a charming city, right? The city of love. And from this class, we've learned that, well, there's another side to Paris. And I would argue that if we look specifically at the Palais Royal, at the scenes that take place and the gardens there, we can sort of make a similar inference, right? It only tells a little bit of the history of the Palais Royal. It only tells one side, the side of the charming historical building, and it doesn't tell the other side of the story, which we are going to discuss today.
So now we're going to get a little bit into the architecture of the Royal Palace. And as mentioned earlier, it was originally commissioned by Cardinal Richelieu as his private residence in 1633 and originally named the Palais Cardinal. Really followed this French classical Baroque style, very symmetrical design, had these grand colonnades, detailed arcades, and really important, something that was really important with their lush gardens. And they were actually classified as a French historical monument in 1920, and it wasn't until 1994 that the rest of the palace gained this title as well. Has a really central location right across from the Louvre, really central to the city of Paris, and I think that's important for how it's perceived by society as well. Again, following the principles of design, it really follows these principles of harmony, proportion, and symmetry, um, as we find in the style of Jacques Lemercier, which was the architect of the Royal Palace, and he was best known for his contribution to the palace in the 1630s. Again, he really followed this classical Baroque style as he studied in Italy, where he absorbed Baroque architecture. And a lot of his French projects did retain this sense of order and harmony that was able to distinguish his style. And as he embraced this order, this also reflected the aspirations of the French aristocracy at the time. Moving on to a little bit of an architectural timeline of the palace. This was a 10-year project, so between design plans beginning in 1629 and 4 years later, the construction beginning, and then another 6 years later, the construction being completed. This was a 10-year project, and since then, it's undergone many renovations that we'll get into a little bit, but I just wanted to set the scene on how long this actually took. An important moment in time is in 1763 when the Palace Opera burned down, and it was rebuilt and opened in 1770, but again was destroyed by a fire in 1781 and not rebuilt after that. And then between the time of 1781 through 1784, Louis Philippe II expanded and redesigned the complex, and after these renovations in 1784, they were open to the public. The gardens and surrounding structures of the palace served as shopping and entertainment complex, and this featured a six-story buildings that surrounded the gardens on three sides and had lots of galleries on the ground floor for shopping and restaurants. And then in 1986, the Colonnes de Buren were added to the courtyard. This was a public art installation by Daniel Buren that connected the surface level of Paris, street level, to the basement of the palace and really represented this connection between surface level and beneath the depths of Paris, which served as important moments in history as well. So overall, I think the Royal Palace stands as a testament to French architectural evolution from Mercier's Baroque foundations to its later public and cultural adaptations. It really embodies both the artistic ambition and social dynamics of Paris throughout the centuries.
Okay, we are now going to move on to the historical events of the Ballet Royale. First, I want to point out that on July 12th, 1789, Camille Desmoulins gave a speech in the gardens of the palace, and the speech was targeting going against the monarchy because of a dismissal to an estates general. However, 2 days later, the Bastille was stormed, and some believe his speech was part of the motivation to bring violence to the Bastille, almost creating a protest against the monarchy. The second point I want to mention is the theatrical events that went on at the palace as well. Theater played a pretty big part of it. Uh, there was a theater built within the palace for Richelieu and was there until around 1673. Then the opera moved in 1763. However, it was burned down. And then the Montpensier Theater moved in and became the Palace Royal Theater in 1790. Lastly, I just want to mention in 1871, the palace formed three separate government departments. So that's going to be the Ministry of Culture, the Council of State, and the Constitutional Council. These three departments were established to help control government matters, whether that was with the culture of the state or the country. All of those departments really just sat in that area, and I felt that it was a big historical event at the time to have all three of those departments developed as well as within the palace during that time. So those are the three historical events.
So now I'm going to talk about the cultural events of the Palais Royal. So in the 7th century, the Palais Royal has become the center of cultural theatrical, and the Palais Royal was originally known as the Palais Cardinal because Cardinal Richelieu has commissioned the Palais Royal in 1633 and built a theater within the Palais Royal. The famous playwright Molière and his troupe has performed many plays in the Palais Royal. This famous works has effectively promoted people's love for drama and have become one of the many cultural contents of the local area. For the 18th century, the place has become a center of social and intellectual. By the 1780s, the Palais Royal has become a hotspot for discussion in everyday life. Philosophers such as Diderot and Voltaire frequented the Palais Royal, bringing new ideas to the area and sparking heated debate about new ideas, making the Palais Royal a hot topic and an intellectual hub for the time. In the 19th century, the place is at the forefront of artistic. In the 19th century, the galleries and the theaters built in the Palais Royal attracted many writers such as Victor Hugo and artists such as Delectrocus. Such a gorgeous stage was exactly what they needed, and they all hoped to exhibit their works in a better place, so the Palais Royal became their first choice, and because of that, the Palais Royal became the center of art and drama. And here's all the sources we used to create this presentation.